I was just a caretaker at the monster research family. Then Eric, our half-human half-snake hybrid, went into heat and refused to mate with his own kind. And then I was forcibly pushed into his enclosure. No one expected what happened next. He accepted me. The gem was an iron cage, cold and unyielding. Ryan's long, sinuous tail coiled around me, pulling me toward him with quiet, terrifying strength. "What are you afraid of? Isn't this what you wanted, darling?" His voice slithered through my mind. I glared at him, warning clear in my eyes. He only chuckled, tilted my chin up, and pressed a snake-like kiss to my lips. Cameras. I remembered the cameras. The thought of Dr. Wilson and her team watching, recording, studying us, killed any trace of desire I might have felt. Ryan seemed to read my thoughts, his laugh soft but knowing. His arms wrapped around my waist. "Don't worry," he murmured. "They won't see you." Before I could ask what he meant, his tail whipped through the cage. The hidden cameras tucked in the corners shattered under his destructive power. Only then did he uncover my ears, licking a quick, snake-like greeting. "Better now, darling." My cheeks burned. I nodded slightly. Ryan's face lit up with excitement before he pressed his lips firmly to mine again. Dr. Wilson didn't know that the human-snake hybrid she had created was not only a perfect blend of human and snake, but also capable of reading minds. I wasn't supposed to be his caretaker. She had assigned me, a mute woman, to him because the hybrids were grotesque, aggressive, and known for eating their caretakers. Mortality rates among caretakers were notoriously high. But when a new human-snake egg required supervision, I was pushed forward unanimously. So, I became Ryan's caretaker. My days were filled with observation, recording data, monitoring hatching progress. Most hybrids developed maternal attachments to the first person they saw after birth. Dr. Wilson herself came every day after work, convinced that she was the one Ryan would bond with. She instructed me to call immediately when the egg was about to hatch. But Ryan had his own plans. The first person he saw after hatching wasn't me, but Dr. Wilson. She believed that, no matter what, the one closest to him would always be her. What she didn't know was that Ryan had been hearing my thoughts for half a year before he even hatched. He knew why I was there. To avenge my brother. He knew what would happen if anyone discovered his mind-reading abilities. After hatching, he acted dumb, displaying intelligence no higher than a 6 or 7-year-old human. Enough to thrill the researchers, not enough to reveal his true mind. To them, he was perfect, a flawless blend of human and snake, without a single genetic flaw. To Ryan, their attention was humiliation. Even during mating season, he refused others of his kind. And ever since I discovered his abilities, I deliberately seduced him. With all the cameras destroyed, no one could watch. Dr. Wilson and her team had rushed to the second floor to observe the mating behavior from above. 7 or 8 researchers leaned over the railing, phones in hand, their whispers filled with awe. "He doesn't reject humans," one said, eyes wide. "He must think humans are his own kind." Another smirked. "Since he accepts his caretaker, he'd accept you too, Dr. Wilson. Once his mating season passes, go in yourself and write a detailed report." Dr. Wilson adjusted her glasses, greed flickering in her gaze as it lingered on Ryan's tail. My hands gripped his arms tightly, remembering my brother's horrible death. Ryan sensed my rage instantly. He pulled me against his chest, covering my ears, glaring fiercely at the second-floor intruders. His tail lashed violently against the cage, the noise and vibrations nearly toppling the researchers. "Privacy matters," one researcher said nervously. "We should leave." Reluctantly, Dr. Wilson agreed. Once the observers had gone, Ryan looked down at me. "Don't be scared, darling. I've chased them all away." I'll help you," I whispered, nodding slightly. His golden-green eyes sharpened, pupils narrowing to vertical slits. His tail wrapped around my waist again. He stood tall above me, the upper half of his human form rigid and imposing. I tilted my head back, trembling as I anticipated what was coming. "Don't be afraid, darling. If you kiss me more, I won't hurt you." His words came with a flick of his tongue, slipping eagerly under the hem of my shirt. The hum of the research facility was different at night, quieter, yet somehow more threatening. I moved silently through the dimly lit corridors, carrying a tray of food for Ryan. Even after weeks in his presence, my heart still thudded whenever I thought about how much power that long, sinuous body contained. Ryan lounged in his enclosure, the cold steel floor beneath him irrelevant to the heat radiating from his skin. He raised his head, eyes glinting in the low light, and I felt it again. The pull, the unspoken connection that made my stomach knot. "You're late," he murmured, his tongue flicking once against his lips. Not a question, not a command. A statement. I swallowed, trying to steady my voice. I had to check on something. His gaze pierced me, golden-green irises narrowing. I shivered under it, sensing that he already knew exactly what I had been doing. As I placed the tray down, I tested him subtly. I thought of a number, any number, and let it swirl in my mind, just as I had before. Ryan tilted his head, eyes tracking my thoughts with unnerving precision. 17, he said softly, almost a whisper, yet I knew it wasn't a guess. I froze. Every instinct screamed that I shouldn't be surprised, yet my chest tightened. He wasn't just reading me. He was inside me. The connection went beyond instinct, beyond biology. "Show me more," I whispered, my voice trembling. His lips curved, faintly amused. With a flick of his tongue, he seemed to shimmer, scales catching the light differently, shifting almost imperceptibly along his spine. My breath hitched. Subtle shape-shifting, he was more than just a hybrid. He was evolving, bending the boundaries of what anyone thought was possible. I wanted to touch him, to explore this dangerous brilliance, but caution kept my hands at my sides. Every inch of him radiated control, power, and something darker, something that could kill me in a heartbeat if he wanted. Outside, the hum of the facility changed. Footsteps. Dr. Wilson. I cursed under my breath, heart hammering. She had been acting strange lately, pacing more, watching more, asking more questions. The cameras, the broken sensors, she had noticed. Ryan's tail curled around my ankle, a warning I could feel more than see. His voice slithered into my mind. "Do not let her see you like this." I nodded, pretending to adjust the tray. Dr. Wilson's shadow fell across the hallway, her heels clicking sharply against the metal floor. "Everything running smoothly?" she asked, eyes flicking to the broken cameras with a barely concealed frown. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Ryan is resting." Her gaze lingered, sharp and calculating. She tilted her head as though she could see through the walls. "Good," she said finally before moving on. The moment she passed, Ryan exhaled against my ear. "They suspect. You're not safe." "I know," I whispered, "but we'll stay ahead." He pressed his forehead to mine, scales brushing my skin, and I felt a shiver run through me. Intelligence, power, and a predator's instinct, all wrapped in that impossibly beautiful hybrid form. I had been his caretaker. Now I realized I was a student, learning the true nature of the creature I thought I controlled. And I knew, with a chill crawling up my spine, that he would teach me far more than I had bargained for. The lights flickered faintly as I walked the corridor, my hands clenching the clipboard tighter than necessary. Every step echoed against the sterile metal walls, and I could feel Ryan's presence behind the thick glass of his enclosure, waiting, watching. It started subtly at first, small glances from the other hybrids, a hiss here, a shift in posture there. I dismissed it as coincidence until I saw her. The female hybrid, sleek and serpentine like Ryan, with eyes sharp as knives, had been observing me for days. And now she wasn't hiding. She slithered along the hallway, tail curling in deliberate, menacing arcs, eyes locked on me. Ryan's head snapped up. His nostrils flared, scales bristling. I could feel it before he moved, the tension rolling off him in waves. "Do not approach her." His voice echoed in my mind, not spoken, but imprinted on my thoughts. "She's dangerous. She's jealous," I whispered, instinctively pressing closer to the glass of his enclosure. "She wants you or me." Ryan's tail lashed against the floor, steel claws scraping, sending sparks across the cage. "Both," he hissed, low and lethal. "She'll pay if she touches either of us." The female hybrid moved faster, scaling the walls with unnatural agility, narrowing the distance between herself and the glass. My stomach dropped. I wasn't supposed to be a part of this, yet here I was, caught in the orbit of creatures whose strength I couldn't begin to match. Then Ryan moved. Fluid and terrifying, his tail uncoiling and striking the enclosure walls with precision. The metal groaned, but did not yield. I watched, frozen, as he tested the barrier with controlled force, and I realized something terrifying and exhilarating at once. He wanted her to understand she couldn't threaten us. But she didn't stop. The glass cracked under her weight, hairline fractures spiderwebbing across the surface. Panic surged in me. I thought of running, but Ryan's eyes locked on mine, golden green and impossibly intense.
Stay.
Watch. Learn. Before I could respond, the female hybrid lunged at the weakened section. Ryan's tail whipped around the cage, catching her mid-strike, and the force sent her sprawling back against the wall. She hissed, a sound full of rage and humiliation. "You shouldn't have come here," Ryan growled, human voice laced with something darker, something primal. The female hybrid recovered quickly, circling, seeking a new angle. Ryan moved, coiling and striking with precision, pushing her back step by step. Every movement was calculated, a predator in perfect harmony with his instincts, yet so much more intelligent than the researchers gave him credit for. Suddenly, the glass shattered completely, shards scattering across the floor. The chase began. I ran, adrenaline coursing through my veins, as Ryan followed with terrifying speed, his long body slipping through hallways and vents I didn't even know existed. The female hybrid darted ahead, attempting to corner me, but Ryan was always closer. His tail wrapped around my waist suddenly, lifting me and pulling me out of harm's way in one fluid motion. I gasped, hanging suspended in his grasp as he darted past the attacking hybrid. "Not a scratch," he hissed into my mind, his golden eyes boring into mine. "I will not let anyone harm you." We barreled through corridors, the echo of our chase ringing in the empty halls. Sparks flew as Ryan smashed through another barrier, his strength overwhelming, unstoppable. Finally, the hybrid faltered, retreating into a darkened corner, eyes burning with fury and defeat. I sank against Ryan's chest, trembling. He lowered me gently, scales brushing my skin in a ghost of contact. "You're safe," he murmured, tail coiling possessively around us both. "For now." I swallowed hard, my heart still racing. The danger wasn't gone. Not by far. But I had just witnessed the full measure of Ryan's power, and the truth settled cold and thrilling in my chest. There was no one in that facility, no hybrid, no human, who could come between him and me. And that thought, terrifying as it was, made me shiver with a dangerous, unbidden desire. The lab was quieter in the early morning, the harsh fluorescent lights softened by the thin haze of steam rising from Ryan's bath. I moved slowly, careful not to make noise, carrying the folded towels I always brought him. He lay on the heated stone platform, half human, half serpent, but now relaxed in a way that made his form almost gentle. His golden green eyes tracked me, unblinking yet calm, and I felt the pull in my chest that had nothing to do with fear. "You're early today," he said, voice low, almost teasing. "I couldn't sleep," I murmured. My thoughts drifted back, as they often did, to my brother, the reason I'd been assigned here, the reason Ryan and I had this bond. His face appeared in my mind, pale, terrified, gone too soon. Ryan tilted his head, a strange softness in his gaze. I remember him. His voice slipped directly into my mind, unspoken. I remember what happened. I froze, startled by the directness of his empathy. No one had acknowledged it, not the researchers, not anyone. But Ryan had. He had known, had sensed, and had stored it, shaping his trust in me from the first moment I entered this facility. I didn't expect you to remember," I whispered, almost afraid to breathe too loudly. He shifted slightly, scales brushing my fingers when I adjusted a towel near him. "I never forget." His tone was firm, comforting, not human, not entirely snake, something beyond comprehension. I set the towels down and crouched near him, careful to keep my movements slow. I hated this place after it happened. I hated that they didn't care. Ryan's tail wrapped lightly around my wrist, a small, deliberate gesture. Not possessive, not commanding, but protective. Neither do I. The sensation sent shivers up my spine. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it carried the weight of understanding. A quiet bond had formed between us, stitched together with shared knowledge of loss, danger, and unspoken trust. For a long moment, neither of us moved. I could feel his heartbeat through the thin warmth of his chest against my fingers. He was alive, yes, but more than that, aware, conscious, more human in that awareness than anyone here. I let my mind wander back to the first days, when I'd only been his caretaker, assigned out of necessity and revenge. He had been dangerous, unpredictable, deadly even, yet I had felt seen. And now, he was showing it again, without anyone else noticing. "Do you care?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. "Do you?" His mind brushed against mine, probing gently, not demanding, not invasive, just curious. I swallowed, my throat tight. Yes. Ryan's lips curved faintly, the smallest sign of emotion, and he leaned closer, nose brushing against my temple. Scales and warmth, human and animal, danger and safety all in one. Then, I am satisfied. The soft sound of his breath, the gentle coiling of his tail around mine, the quiet intensity of his gaze, these were the unspoken words we shared. No cameras, no researchers, no one watching. Just him, just me, and the fragile, dangerous intimacy that grew stronger with every passing. As I stood to leave, setting a towel aside, I realized something I hadn't admitted even to myself. The bond we shared was more than caretaker and hybrid. It was survival, trust, and desire, mixed together in a way that no one could understand, but that we felt in every glance, every brush of scales against skin. And as I walked back toward the hall, I knew the researchers would never see it. But Ryan did. And that was enough. The lab smelled faintly of antiseptic and ozone. I moved between enclosures with practiced care, aware of every step, every sound, every flicker of movement. Ryan followed silently behind me, tail occasionally brushing my ankle, a quiet reminder that he was always aware, always present. I didn't notice Dr. Wilson at first. She emerged from the observation room, arms crossed, glasses slipping slightly down her nose, lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes, sharp as ever, were fixed on us. "I see you've been bonding," she said, voice tight, controlled. "More than necessary for data collection, I mean." I froze. Ryan stiffened behind me, tail tightening slightly around my waist. I'm just performing my duties," I murmured, trying to keep my voice steady. Dr. Wilson's eyes narrowed. "Really?" Her gaze swept Ryan, lingering on the subtle curve of his scales, the way his chest rose and fell when he breathed near me. "You think he trusts you? Or are you manipulating him?" My stomach twisted. Her words weren't a question, they were an accusation. I felt Ryan shift behind me, senses flaring, muscles tensing like a coiled spring. "Do not worry," his voice slithered into my mind, calm but cold. "I know." Dr. Wilson didn't see the warning in his eyes. She only saw what she wanted to see. Control, domination, a caretaker exploiting a hybrid for personal gain. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'll be watching you from now on. Any unusual behavior, and I will intervene." I nodded, knowing arguing would do nothing. Ryan pressed closer, brushing against me, his scales warm against my skin, a silent reassurance that no one could see. I turned away, trying to hide the small shiver that ran down my spine. But the threat didn't come only from her. I sensed it first before I saw it. A shadow moving along the outer corridors, slow, deliberate. One of the junior staff, a man named Parker, had been lingering where he didn't belong. His eyes followed Ryan constantly, flickering with calculation, greed, and ambition. "He wants to use me," Ryan warned in my mind, the tone lethal. "He doesn't care for anyone but what I can do for him." I swallowed hard, realizing that the danger extended beyond Dr. Wilson. Parker had been plotting for weeks, pretending to assist the research, while secretly feeding false data, hoping to manipulate Ryan's abilities for his own advancement. Ryan's body stiffened, scales bristling, tail coiling, eyes sharp as daggers. I felt the air in the lab thicken, tension crackling like static. "He underestimates me," Ryan hissed. "And that will be his mistake." The lights flickered, and I saw the subtle movements, Parker hesitating at the corner of the hallway, eyes darting toward us, fingers twitching. Ryan's tail lashed once, twice, striking the metal floor with a sound that echoed through the lab. "Do not test me," he murmured, voice low and lethal. Only I could hear it. I took a step closer, brushing a hand along his arm. The warmth of his body grounded me. Whatever Parker or Dr. Wilson believed, Ryan and I knew the truth. We were bound by more than observation, more than duty. Mutual trust, respect, and something darker, something they could never comprehend. And I realized with a thrill that ran cold down my spine, Ryan was ready. He had sensed the betrayal, and nothing in the facility would stop him from protecting what was his. The lab seemed smaller suddenly, the walls closing in with the weight of impending confrontation. Parker's shadow lingered. Dr. Wilson's suspicion hung thick, and Ryan's eyes, unblinking, golden, and alive with quiet fury, bore into mine. "We are ready," he whispered. The alarm shattered the silence before I even saw the breach. Red lights bathed the facility in an urgent glow, sharp and staccato. I froze, heart hammering, as a high-pitched screech echoed down the hallways. One of the more aggressive hybrids had escaped its containment. Ryan was at my side in an instant, tail coiling around my waist with a speed that stole my breath. His eyes glinted golden in the flashing lights, every muscle tense, every scale bristling with lethal focus. "Stay close," he hissed, voice low but sharp in my mind. "Do not stray. They will not hesitate." I nodded, clutching the clipboard like a shield, though I knew it offered no protection. We moved silently, sliding through the corridors with practiced caution, eyes darting to every corner. The other hybrid had been engineered for speed, for predation, for chaos, and now it had found freedom. Parker's shadow fell across the hallway ahead. I stiffened. Ryan's tail whipped out, knocking him aside with controlled force that sent him sprawling to the floor. He didn't stop. His focus remained on the escaped hybrid. I followed, racing down service tunnels I didn't know existed, guided by Ryan's preternatural sense of direction. Every turn brought the scent of panic and fear, the echoes of metal doors swinging open and slamming shut. The hybrid appeared suddenly, lunging from the shadows with a hiss that rattled the walls. Its claws scraped the floor as it charged, intent on whatever prey it could find. Ryan moved faster than thought, intercepting the creature before it could reach me. Tail wrapped around it, constricting, forcing it back. Scales glinting in the alarm light, he hissed and struck, his movements fluid, precise, perfect. "Ryan," I whispered, pressed against his chest, feeling the raw power beneath his human form. He barely acknowledged me, eyes fixed on the danger, voice a low rumble in my mind. "Do not be afraid. I will not let it touch you." We were a team, though unspoken. I anticipated his movements, ducked when he struck, pressed against walls when he needed leverage, handed him tools or unlocked doors as he commanded with a flick of his mind. Every instinct I had as his caretaker now felt amplified, sharpened by necessity. The hybrid recoiled, hissing, injured but not defeated. Ryan's tail coiled tighter around it, constraining without killing. His dominance was absolute, a predator controlling prey with effortless precision, yet he glanced at me for reassurance, an acknowledgement that I was safe and that I mattered in the chaos. I felt the adrenaline in my veins, the terrifying thrill of being alive in the moment, entirely dependent on him. He pressed me close, scales brushing my skin, tail tight around my waist, eyes like molten gold. "We survived together," he whispered. The hybrid finally retreated, slithering back into a maintenance vent, nursing its wounds, but leaving us in tense silence. The alarms echoed, but the immediate danger had passed. I exhaled shakily. "We survived." Ryan's lips brushed my temple, almost affectionately, almost tenderly. "We always survive," he corrected, tail coiling possessively around us both. The weight of it pressed into me, grounding me, thrilling me, terrifying me all at once. And I knew the hunt wasn't over. Parker would try again. Other hybrids might sense weakness. But with Ryan, with this bond forged in danger, I realized one thing with icy certainty: we were unstoppable, together. The lab was empty, the hum of the ventilation system the only sound as I entered Ryan's enclosure. My hands shook slightly as I carried the tray of food, though I told myself it was leftover adrenaline from the hunt. Ryan was already awake, coiled across the stone platform, golden green eyes fixed on me like a predator studying its favorite curiosity. His tail flicked, brushing against the floor, the movement deliberate, slow, teasing. "You're quiet today," he murmured, voice low and intimate, sliding into my mind without a word. "Nervous?" I swallowed. I'm just focused." He chuckled softly, a sound that slithered along my nerves, curling into my chest. His tail wrapped once around my ankle, tugging me closer, forcing me to stop. The sudden closeness sent a shiver up my spine. Part fear, part something far more dangerous. "Good," he whispered. "Stay here." I froze as he shifted, leaning closer. The warmth of his body pressed against mine, scales brushing lightly against my arm, chest nearly touching mine. He lowered his head, eyes locked onto mine, pupils narrowing. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked without words, the mind link wrapping around me. Intimate, invasive in the best possible way. I nodded slightly, heat rising to my cheeks. Yes, I felt it. The pull of desire, the forbidden curiosity, the thrill of testing boundaries I wasn't sure I wanted to cross. Ryan's tongue flicked once against my jaw, a snake-like touch that left fire in its wake. "You're learning." I trembled. "Learning? About me?" he answered, voice like silk and steel. "About what I am, human enough to care, snake enough to take what I need." I backed up instinctively, but his tail uncoiled, wrapping around my waist and holding me in place. The combination of restraint and warmth made my pulse race. Fear and fascination tangled inside me. I tried to speak, but words faltered, weak against the intensity of him. Ryan's head tilted, lips brushing dangerously close to mine. "You want to understand me," he said softly, "but you fear what you might feel." "Yes," I whispered, breathless. "And I don't know if I should." He pressed closer, the heat of his scales against my skin, the hum of power rolling off him in waves. "Boundaries are fragile," he murmured, "and some are meant to be tested." A flick of his tongue traced my jawline again, teasing, exploring. I shivered, torn between the terror of crossing a line I couldn't uncross and the desire that made my blood sing. "You are mine to protect," he said suddenly, eyes flashing, "but mine to teach as well." I blinked, heart hammering. Protection, teaching, desire, it was all tangled together, impossible to separate. His dual nature became clear in every movement. Human empathy that understood my fear, snake instincts that could dominate, capture, and overwhelm. I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling the taut muscle beneath scales. And what if I can't resist? Ryan's tail tightened once around me, possessive and thrilling. "Then I will not let you," he whispered, "but I will make you understand." The words, the proximity, the weight of him against me. It was a dangerous lesson, one I both dreaded and craved. I realized then that the line between fear and desire was thinner than I had ever imagined, and crossing it would change everything. I understood. Ryan wasn't just a hybrid to be studied or tamed. He was a force, human and serpent intertwined, and I was already entangled. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving, as Dr. Wilson appeared at the entrance to Ryan's enclosure. Her heels clicked sharply on the metal floor, each step echoing like an accusation. "I need an explanation," she said, voice tight, controlled, but trembling just slightly beneath the surface. "What is going on here? How are you?" Her eyes flicked to Ryan. "Interacting with him." I froze, heart pounding, knowing that words alone couldn't convey the bond we shared, nor the danger of crossing Ryan. I'm performing my duties," I murmured, trying to sound calm, though my voice trembled. Dr. Wilson's gaze narrowed, sharp and unforgiving. "Do not lie to me," she snapped. "I designed him. You're his caretaker. His behavior is your responsibility. Are you manipulating him?" Ryan stirred, coiling, tail wrapping protectively around my waist. His golden green eyes met hers, sharp, intelligent, unyielding. He didn't move like an animal. He moved like a strategist, a predator aware of every angle, every weakness in the room. "Do not test me." His thoughts slithered directly into mine. "I am not a tool," he said aloud, voice low, firm, carrying a weight that made her pause. "I am not your experiment." Dr. Wilson's lips tightened, disbelief flashing across her face. You can speak?" Ryan's lips curved slightly, a flicker of amusement. "I have always spoken," he replied, moving deliberately closer to me, scales brushing against my arm. "I have also always understood." Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for a tablet, as though she could control him through data or commands. Ryan's tail lashed once, knocking it to the floor with a force that made it skitter across the metal, unbroken but useless. "You cannot control me," he said, eyes locked on hers. "Nor can you control her." I felt the weight of the moment, the full measure of Ryan's power, his intelligence, and the depth of his strategy. He had not only protected me, but he had anticipated Dr. Wilson's moves, calculated every threat, and ensured that nothing here would force him back into submission. Her jaw tightened. "You're behaving unpredictably. This could ruin months of research." Ryan's gaze sharpened, pupils vertical slits. "I am not your research." He coiled, body tense and lethal, yet precise, calculating. Every movement was deliberate, designed to show both restraint and dominance. She stepped back, realizing that every action, every flick of his tail, every glance, was a demonstration of his intelligence, a living argument that he could not be treated as a tool. I reached out, fingers brushing his scales lightly. "He's not yours to control," I said softly, feeling the resonance of truth in my own words. Ryan pressed closer, as if affirming it. His eyes met mine, and I understood fully. The hybrid's loyalty was mine, his trust earned, his independence absolute. Dr. Wilson exhaled sharply, her authority challenged in a way she had never anticipated. She stepped back, silent now, the tension in the lab thick enough to taste. Ryan lowered his head slightly, the smallest curve of his lips brushing against my temple, subtle but deliberate. "She will not forget this," he whispered in my mind. "Neither will they." I shivered under his touch, a mixture of awe, desire, and relief. He was not just a hybrid. He was intelligence, strategy, and raw power intertwined, and he had chosen to stand with me, not against me. The lab, once a place of strict control and observation, had shifted. Dr. Wilson, Parker, and the others would have to rethink everything. And I knew one thing with certainty: no one, not human nor hybrid, could come between Ryan and me. Not now, not ever. The doors to the research facility slid open with a hiss, letting in a thin ribbon of early morning light. For the first time, the corridors felt less like a cage and more like a path we had chosen ourselves. Ryan moved beside me, each step deliberate, scales glinting faintly in the half-light. His tail brushed against mine, a quiet anchor, a promise that whatever came next, we faced it together. Dr. Wilson and the remaining researchers were left behind, staring after us with a mix of disbelief, fury, and fear. Their eyes followed every movement, calculating, desperate to regain control, but it was too late. Ryan was no longer a subject, no longer an experiment. He was his own, and I was entwined with him, equally free. I glanced up at him, feeling the pulse of his heartbeat, the subtle warmth beneath the tough, scaly exterior. His golden green eyes met mine, unblinking, unwavering. "We set the rules now," he whispered into my mind, a thread of satisfaction running through his words. I nodded, pressing my hand lightly against his chest. "And we decide what comes next," I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through me. Ryan tilted his head, a soft hum vibrating from deep within him, a sound that was part contentment, part warning. "They thought they could control me," he said, almost amused. "But they never understood what I was capable of." We moved through the perimeter together, careful to avoid unnecessary confrontation, yet aware that the balance of power had shifted. Every glance, every subtle gesture from Ryan reinforced the truth I had learned over weeks of danger, intimacy, and shared secrets. His mind, body, and instincts were his own, but he chose to share them with me. As we reached a secluded exit, Ryan paused, coiling slightly, eyes scanning the shadows. "Forever will not be simple," he murmured, "but it will be ours." I smiled faintly, leaning against him. "I wouldn't have it any other way." He lowered his head, brushing his lips against my temple, scales grazing softly against my skin, a tender, deliberate contact that sent a shiver through me. The warmth of him, the subtle dominance, the undeniable intelligence and awareness, all coalesced into something dangerously intimate, something I could neither fully resist nor fully define. The sunlight touched us both as we stepped into the unknown, free from their eyes, free from their control, yet fully aware that the world beyond the facility would test us in new ways. Ryan's tail wrapped around my waist, protective and possessive, yet gentle. "We face it together," he said, voice low, steady and certain. I pressed closer, letting the weight of him anchor me. Together, I agreed, realizing that freedom, trust, desire, and danger were now intertwined in ways neither of us could untangle. And as we disappeared into the quiet dawn, the facility behind us in chaos and disbelief, I knew that this was not the end. It was a new beginning, a new order. But with Ryan, with him by my side, I also knew we could survive anything the world threw at us.